Hello, and welcome to the Let's Talk Transformation podcasts, where we carry on exploring what really drives change. Today's guest is Nicolas Pokorny, CEO of Mammoth Leadership Sciences, global executive, an Ironman enthusiast, and more importantly for this discussion, the author of the book, The Mammoth in the Room. Nicolas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. Hello,
It's
Susie.
It's a pleasure to have you. Nicholas, you and I both share this quest of wanting to understand and highlight the human dimension of leadership and what it can bring to organizations and society. But in your powerful book, you reveal why our greatest leadership challenges often stem not from lack of vision, not from failing to understand strategy, but failing to understand the people we lead and starting with ourselves.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I think, for our listeners, if you've ever wondered why the top-down change fails, why your best people are walking out the door, why you've spent all that time on strategy and then it doesn't work, stay with us. So let's start there. Nicholas, you start your book with a mammoth hunt, or the story of a mammoth hunt, as the title would suggest. Why go so far back in time to talk about modern leadership?
yeah, yeah. Actually, the start of the book came at last. So
Oh, really?
everything was written,
Okay.
and um, and there are so many leadership books out there, and they
Yes.
all start in a certain way. And I was like, okay, so how do we put this human behavior aspect into something which is powerful?
Mm,
And it was more a conversation between my publisher and myself. How can we start this? And then the idea came up. Okay, so let's go back in time where all of this kind of started. I mean, as humans, we are on this
well,
world
mm,
since millions, billions of years. And the idea was, how can we showcase that as a human being alone, you pretty much damned to die, right?
mm,
There's nothing really you can do by yourself. Uh, a- and but we have become such a powerful and sometimes, of course, too powerful species.
mm,
So how did we do that? And the idea came, okay, so let's go back at the time where we hunt a mammoth because a mammoth is way too big for any one of us to hunt alone, right? So you need
yes.
to collaborate, you need to work together, you need to have the right people, the right amount of people, you need to have a strategy and you need to also implement that strategy.
Mm,
And that was the idea in putting this just upfront to the people.
mm,
Whatever we have achieved as species has nothing to do with one person alone. It always is the collective.
mm. And the mammoth is a big beast, isn't it? I mean,
And the mammoth is a super big
yeah.
beast. Yeah, yeah,
It reminds me of bureaucracy and what I call the big machine. So
yeah,
large organizations and how they run their processes, how it works, and the inertia that can create in the
yeah,
system, not only for the business results, but also for the people who work in that. And I know that we're all in the middle of this huge paradigm shift in leadership, because the world is becoming less of a mammoth and more of
yeah,
little mammoths connected together, if I take the mammoth analogy. But we still need to know what to do with the mammoth and how to lead, let's say, a herd of mammoths as opposed to one large one. So, you know, what does it mean for blind spots, Nicholas? We know that in organizations, often the only way up for people is to become managers or lead big teams,
yeah.
even if they don't want to or if they don't have the requisite people skills. So,
Yeah.
what does that mean for successful transformation and essentially the big machine, which is your mammoth in the room?
Yeah, I think that's a broad question. I mean, yes, if we want to move up in organizations, we come at a certain point to a position where we lead others, and
Mm,
that's a good thing
mm,
because if you learn something, you want to go into a position where you can maybe share
mm,
what you have learned, and then afterwards, excuse me, and then afterwards lead a team towards a certain goal.
mm,
Um, it's a if you think about it from a team perspective, let me go back a little bit to the mammoth, because the mammoth actually is a the mammoth hunt is actually a very good example um of how this behavior comes together. You can play around so much with this.
Mm,
You cannot choose any people for that. You need to have people who have the subject matter expertise to hunt
yes.
something big, right? But you also need to have people you can trust, because you
Mm,
don't want somebody after you have um, killed the mammoth, you want to eat it, run away with everything,
yeah.
right? So you need to also trust the people who are part of that. Um, and um, and then somehow in the way when we now put this forward into our current world, if you think about it, in general, nothing really has changed except what are we doing, right? I mean, you
Hmm.
still have to have the people who have the skills. You have to have the people you can trust, and you also need to find, you need to have a common goal. Everyone needs to understand the purpose where this is going. But the difficulty for us as human beings is, if you think about it, everyone is working first and foremost for him or herself. It is
Mm,
about earning money. It is about being able to pay the rent, to pay school. So everyone is working first and foremost for him or herself. In a big company, however, you also need the others to collaborate
mm,
with you, because otherwise you don't reach your goals, right?
mm,
So here is this: you work for yourself, but you need to collaborate. And then there's a third aspect, and this is a very interesting one. If you lead a team, or if you want to move up in an organization, you're not only working for yourself and need to collaborate with others, you are also in competition to the others.
yes.
Because if Susie is the manager of the team and she will choose one of us, we are reporting to you as her successor, we need to collaborate, but we are competition to each other. So one of us will maybe then become your successor. And
Mm,
that's a very interesting triad, right? So everyone works for him or herself, everyone needs to collaborate, and everyone is in competition. And we as leaders, we need to channel, we need to lead that.
mm,
And not only your team, because you are in the same situation towards your superiors, right?
yes.
And that's a very, very complex thing. This is so complex. Um, it cannot even be solved by one recipe or
Mm,
one certain way.
mm,
There's so much knowledge out there, in fact, about human behavior, but to put it on the ground,
mm.
there's so much art in that science, and it needs so much experience to be able to do that. Otherwise, you fall in all of these evolutionary traps.
Yeah, and I love the idea of evolutionary traps and pitfalls. We'll come back to that. But I think,
Yeah,
for me, and I know we share this question of this is a big training gap for leadership
yeah,
in
yeah,
organizations. But I am fascinated by there's quite a lot to unpack in what you've just said, but let's start with the individual lens. I am
yeah,
fascinated by this apparent paradox between working for myself, being individualistic, but also being wired for connection, belonging, and therefore needing to collaborate with some type of system and what that means for the way we make decisions, but also effective collaboration in organizations. And you give some brilliant examples and anecdotes in your book around why that is so and how we can, I'm going to put my words on it, get our head round the fact that
yeah,
we have these individual needs, Nicolas, but we need to be collective, and we're being asked more and more to be collective in organizations that reward individual behavior.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean the whole corporate world is built pretty transactional, right?
Mm,
I mean, you do something and then you get something for it.
yes.
Um, and uh, and that is it's not ideal, because it doesn't really lead to transformational leadership, where people are driven by purpose, where by their self-interest in achieving something in
Mm,
this world and taking others, and achieving something for yourself and with others, which makes us feel good, because you wired that way simply because of the reciprocity of
mm,
evolution and nature. Um, but the business world is very transactional. And I have to tell you, I haven't really found a um, model where company could be led on that level
Mm,
without being transactional, because you cannot get people on board or your um, company and just paying them with purpose. You need
mm.
to pay them money and you need to
Yes,
pay them
of course,
bonuses
of
and you need
course.
and all these things, right? So it's very difficult. But I found the ability to on an individual on a team level,
Mm,
and that is where I always talk about it. Leadership doesn't start at the top. Leadership starts on individual level, and
mm,
that is grounded in evolutionary facts. Because if you as a leader don't care of the person who works first and foremost for him or herself, which is our biological concept, that's Darwin one-on-one, this is biology one-on-one, we all learned this in school. If you don't get the person on board, you fail.
mm,
And you have to bring all these different people on board if you have a team of 8, which was my first leadership role. And they were
mm,
all completely different individuals, of course, differently wired. And in order to move up in an organization, you need to understand every single team member, then merge the team members' goals of their life, because that's what they're working first and foremost, and merge that
mm,
with the company goals. And the way how to do this, and it's not easy, the way
mm,
how to do this is to say, look, this is what you would like to achieve in your life, in your career. Here is what the company offers you in terms of roles, in terms of goals. Now let's merge this.
mm,
And then on the way to the company goals, you can achieve your own goals. And that is an art to do this. And you know what it takes? It takes time to sit down with the individuals and really understand how you individuals of your team really tick. Now, you can't do that on a corporate level where you have 30,000 people in your company. But
yeah,
every single team leader of maybe 5 or 6 or 10 can do that. And if
mm,
all of us would do that, would understand that human behavior was drives it and find the purpose, then we would have many, many, many teams which are led by what I was just explaining. And that would then make a bigger and better company culture. That's my passion. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I think this is possible, but it starts on individual level.
mm. And therefore, if I go back to the first part of your book, which is called On People, it
Yeah.
starts with fix yourself first.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
what do I have to do to fix myself first before I can think about understanding the people who work for me?
Well, what does it take?
No
I mean, it
offense
should,
will be taken at your reply.
yeah, well, I mean, I think just the knowledge about, w- you know, you know, I have it's difficult to say because what it takes about is just being a good person,
Hmm.
common sense good person. Now that is not that easy in this world where we are
Mm,
constantly pushed for going better, bigger, wider, and so on and so forth. But that's so many things you need to, a leader can do and learn, even if you're not the most humble person. There are a couple of things which we talk about in the book and write in the book and talk in the podcast. Um, that you start with yourself because if you lead by example, if you show others that you are driven by the purpose, that you are not um, hitting down on people when they maybe make a mistake, that you are not constantly the one who is talking and showing others that you think you are better or bigger or
mm,
whatever. If you understand that when as a leader the world is not circling around you, um, you need to live that, you need to show that. I have a very dear friend of mine who I had the honor to take a team over once back in Austria. He gave me one tip, and was a guy I really really value a lot. He's way younger than me, but he gave me a very important tip. And he said, always remember your team, you need your team more than your team needs you. Because if you lead a team
Mm,
of, let's say, 8 people, in my case, it was 8 sales rep. Um, if if they don't, if you cannot establish this leadership and this followership relationship, that they follow you not because you are you, but because they understand where you are going. If they don't follow you, you have a big
mm,
problem. And
mm.
if you are one leader and the other 8 reject you, guess what happens? They will not replace the 8; they will replace you.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
And it's a difficult topic, and the reason why it's so difficult, and because it's difficult, I was thinking we need to bring this back on the level way before we talk about strategy or implementation or vision or
Mm, mm.
P&Ls or growth or whatever over last key and all these things. Because the one thing I fundamentally believe in is a leader needs to understand if we lead, when we are business leaders, we're actually not leading a business, we're leading the people who do the business.
Yep. It's a very
And
important
that means
distinction.
you need you need your people. And it's not about you. I'm writing at this in the book. It's not about you. One of the biggest things, which is way underrated, terribly, terribly way underrated, just be nice.
Mm,
Just be nice. You don't have to be in the corporate world. There is so much. I'm the boss and I tell you what to do. And if you don't do that, then I'm getting rid of you. You
mm,
have a different opinion. Come on, how can you even dare to have a different opinion? I'm higher than you. Just be nice to people, right?
mm,
And the interesting thing is, if you think about it, how often in leadership positions, um, or in corporate scenarios, people are basically put against the wall at governance meetings
mm,
are really hacked from business, from leadership, and put in the corner, and interrogated. And um, we wouldn't do that in our private life. We would never talk to our neighbor like that,
mm,
right? So there is this connotation of I have to be hard and tough, and it's about me. It's all BS. No, we
mm,
don't need that.
mm,
We don't need that.
mm.
Yeah,
It's also about power, though, isn't it? You talk about it quite a lot in your book about
yeah,
your, I'm going to put it in inverted commas, naive thinking, and I join you on that one. I had the same light
yeah,
bulb of,
yeah,
if I'm nice and I deliver, then I don't need to understand the power dynamics of the
yeah,
stakeholders I'm working with. And I think that's very interesting in terms of the evolutionary lens, Nicholas,
yeah,
where
yeah,
that power comes from, because I often have this conversation around flat organizations without hierarchy. There will always be hierarchy, won't there,
yeah,
in human groups. So
yeah,
what does that mean for, as a leader, my necessity to understand power and to manage it in a way that is, take your word, effective, but also nice?
yeah, yeah. Um, the I think the best way of describing this is going a little bit back in time from evolutionary reasons. Um, why we even develop leadership behavior
Hmm.
and followship behavior, and why we even develop hierarchies. Because if everything in life has to stand the test of time, from a behavior perspective, if behavior doesn't make sense, it will not move on, because evolution would prevent that. So there is a reason why when we go for goals, for certain
Hmm.
goals, like a mammoth hunt, that there is a hierarchy within, because it is important that, um, leadership, there is leadership, and then there is followership, and whenever you have leadership, there is also some kind of a hierarchy. And
Hmm.
from an evolutionary standpoint, I explained that also in the book, is if you look yourself in the mirror, if I look myself in the mirror, what do I see? Um, I see an individual of a species who is incredibly weak, incredibly slow, incredibly unprotected, incredibly unarmored. right?
Mm.
So every ant outlifts me, every squirrel outruns me, every beetle outprotects me, and every one of my dogs and cats and rabbits I have at home can scratch me and bite me. And what do? Bite back with what? With what?
Mm.
Right? So I'm asking myself, why am I here? And the interesting thing is, I am here because I can collaborate. And originally, leadership was task related.
Mm.
And task related means, think about that in a way, a group of early human beings walk through a forest and then there is a river and you need to go over the river. Okay, so who knows how to go over the river, right? And then somebody says, well, I know to buy a boat, how to build a boat. I have no idea how to build a boat. This guy knows how to build a boat. So then we follow that person, and that person is the leader and has a hierarchical leadership in that, and gives us guidance into the tree, and this is how you put these things together. And then we go over the river, then we're there, and then there is a mountain in front of us, right? And then this guy says, I have no idea how to get
Mm.
over the mountain. I'm out of here because I'm a shipbuilder, right? I'm not a mountain climber. So then somebody else says, I can do this and I can tell you. And here you check, you take this and then you make this tool and whatever and so forth. So it was task related.
Mm.
And because of this task related leadership, we learned to follow, we learned to lead, and we learned to follow. Now, in our new world, when we put this now forward many, many hundred
Mm.
thousand million years, right? Now we are at the position where one person who has no clue about building ships um, becomes the CEO of the shipbuilding company. I mean, we have like we have CEOs who work for who come from finance and then they lead a pharmaceutical company,
Mm.
or we have somebody who is the CEO of a like like I don't know, a telecompany, and then
Mm.
he becomes right. So there is a situation where, and even in bigger companies, when people start to lead departments, they have really no clue of some aspects of it, and that
Mm.
means in that situation they need to understand when they need to lead and when they need to follow, and that's a very difficult thing to do also because we are telling our leaders all the time, hey, you need to lead, you need to show
Yes. Mm.
your right, right. So, but um, that is the crux, and that is what the most important thing for leaders really to understand. Where is my subject matter expertise?
Mm.
Where can I really lead in what I'm doing? Where can I contribute, and where should I maybe just be silent because
Mm.
others know better, and
Mm.
I become the follower. Right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's the yeah, and that's and the whole first section is about on people to really understand understand. Yes.
Mm. And it brings me to the idea of creating the conditions or the culture within which that can happen, which for me
Yeah.
is a leader's job. And you talk about it in the book. And you also describe these four levels of team performance. So fight or
Y-
flight, competitive, creative, and flow. And just to come off the back of the river example, what differentiates leaders who bring teams to the flow state, Nicolas, and how do we know when we're there? Because I
Yeah.
could think,
Yeah.
okay, I know how to lead, I know how to follow. Now I can get my team into flow. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Um,
Just a small question.
you
Mm.
need to earn this really yourself. And I have to give credit to that concept to my dear friend who Tony Luckner, who actually wrote the foreword to this.
Mm.
Um, and I have I have developed a followership leadership matrix. It's in the
Yes.
strategy session of the book. If I would write the book again, I would probably put it in the people section, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, interesting.
It,
Okay. We,
it fits
yeah.
in both. It fits
Mm.
in both. But where I give examples where you can actually use this as a tool, and we are now currently developing it also to somehow make it maybe a little bit of a more intuitively usable
Mm.
tool. Um, you can check with your team where you are on that quadrant,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you are really, if you're thinking you're leading,
Mm.
or if you are really leading,
Nice.
if you're
Mm.
thinking your people follow you because they understand the purpose, or if you think, or if these, or if the team actually follows you because they fear you.
Mm.
and they do everything you want just to not lose your job. How terrible that is, right?
Yes.
But you wouldn't believe it. I mean, there are people out there who are proud to be called the dictators of the team.
Oh, I
It's
believe you.
terrible,
I
obviously. Yeah.
believe you.
So,
Yes.
um, I mean, when do you reach this flow state? I can only give you an example how I reached it for the first time, really. And
Mm.
it took a long time. In one of my leadership depths, I had the honor to go from a very small team to a team of around not quite 100, around 90 people, suddenly leading completely overwhelmed because I had a team of 8, and then I moved up to this, and I thought it's gonna be easy, and it was so not easy. It was terrible because it was like leading through multiple layers, right? So
Mm.
you don't even talking to the people you want to lead, right?
Mm.
But you have to go through other people who need to understand that first. Um, but it took a while, and I had to really really earn this, and the way how we did that was it was long before the book, but it gave me it was I think the first time where I thought about maybe I should write a book about this.
Mm. Yeah.
I started to lead very much from the top because my management told me you do this, you do this, you do that, and I still remember I had this boss who told me priority one, priority two, priority three, priority four, priority five. And I was like, what the heck is going on? If there is a priority, there should be one priority. You gave me 7 priorities. And I went in and did that. And I found out over the first couple of months it didn't work.
Mm.
So then what I did was not because I knew at that time that it was really necessary, but because I needed to figure that out, I started to go on a detailed level down and started to try to understand the people.
Mm.
And then we found out so many issues people had, which we could fix
Mm.
because we understood it. And that then started to build a much bigger level of trust. And one example was, for instance, we invented a certain way of a business review, and everyone was feared that um, people had to come in to the office and present their business, their region or whatever.
Mm.
Then we said, okay, because they are so fearful, what if we go out to them? Okay, that was the next step. We went out to them. So we basically traveled to these regions and did these business reviews. But there was still a lot of fear. But then once we did these things over a long time, 1.5 years, and we are and the team we were there, we showed the people that we really mean it, that we care for it, for them and for their business. After 2.5 years, they started to invite us for business reviews. And that was the moment
Mm.
where I understood, and not I, we as a team, as a leadership team, I had the honor to lead this 7 or 9 people at that time. But we as a team, we earned the respect of the people. That
Mm.
was the flow stage. Took time. It took 2.5 years, and it was also a bit complicated because it was a company who actually, before I joined, was still hurting of a merger, so the cultures
Yes.
clashing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think you know it when you see it, when you
Mm.
feel it.
Mm. Yes, it's something that you feel in an embodied way. You just know you're
Yeah,
there. And
yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because if I come back to the transactional element, we have more dashboards, KPIs, access to data, access to data analysis than we ever had.
yeah, yeah,
But what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing and what I also read in your book is that human behavior is still the most unmeasured risk in strategy implementation. And you've already said that strategy is about people. So, what happens there and how can we try and harness those evolutionary pitfalls and anticipate them? Because you have a
yeah,
leadership fellowship framework, you also have your dynamic stability framework to allow people to tangibly think about these different
yeah,
subjects.
yeah, yeah. I think so. The dynamic stability business framework, um, I is nothing groundbreaking, new, and actually nothing's really new because it's so old. It goes back from a time when we were hunting mammoths. It's just on a place now. and we have the podcast. We talk about it all the
It's just been
time.
customized for organizations.
Yeah, I think I mean, how do we avoid these pitfalls? I mean, simply knowing about,
Mm,
right? A good example is, for instance, that so the dynamic business, the dynamic stability business framework, I invented or wrote in a certain way
mm,
because if you don't evolve, you die as a individual and you die out as a species.
mm.
That's true in nature,
Yes.
right? Um, Now the same is true for companies. If you're
Yes.
not evolving, right? Now people understand change and they always talk about change and the world is changing. But this framework tried to put things somehow into a certain sequence.
Yes.
Because if you are at a certain point and now somebody says now, okay, and now we want to diversify our business without making sure that we do the core things which pays the rent today right and
Mm,
evolve them, you will fail. And there's so much going on every time. Whenever you reach out, big strategic mistakes. Companies don't meet their quarterly targets, and then they start to diversify, which is a super risky business, and they buy something else, and that all goes under.
mm.
The framework just tries to say, look, if you are here one day and you need to go, the biggest goal of every company is basically to still exist in 10, 15,
Yes.
and forever times, right?
Which is getting
To
harder
go
and harder.
through market and times, which
Yeah.
means when you go from A to B, there's a certain sequence we talk about. It's too detailed to talk about it now.
Mm,
Um, but the most important thing is never lose sight of your core business, what you're doing today. And
mm,
don't underestimate that what you're doing today is the most important thing, because if you mess up what you're doing good and today,
mm.
there is no tomorrow,
Yes.
right? That's the biggest lesson one. And the biggest lesson two is um, don't jump too far too quickly and put your ideas, your innovation ideas, which you actually need to pilot and learn. Don't put that immediately. Um, don't give it KPIs. You have to
Mm,
achieve X and Y already in 1 year or 2 years, because then it will fail, because then you will do something what you will hide as or explain as innovation just with the same tools you have today. So that is what this framework is about. Um, it's based on evolution. I was trying to take the evolutionary
mm,
principles into a business model. Nothing
mm.
special. Everyone should think like that, and everyone. I think a lot of people do. It's just like
Yes.
how do you sequence it?
But it's very
Um,
helpful to see it sequenced and visualized. It's
yeah,
very
I hope.
helpful.
I hope. And the other piece is you just knowing about evolutionary biases.
Yes.
Um, and that is what we're explaining, right? I mean, there are biases like one is the false positive decision-making
Yes.
bias, right? That
Mm,
that when we humans we are risk averse for a very good reason, right?
mm.
Because if you are um, um, misjudging a belt, which I've read in this, it's actually a funny family story. A belt. If you misjudge a belt um, um, for a snake, you will be very cautious, and that's good. But
Yes.
if you misjudge a snake for a belt and you don't care, then you might be bitten, right? So there is a certain risk aversion, and that makes a lot of sense in the world. And sometimes we are overriding that because we
Mm.
want to be super risky, and or other things are you build your echo chambers in companies,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You have a certain view, you raise that view, your boss says, well, I'm not seeing it that way. You know that your yearly review comes up, then you somehow start, he doesn't like it or she doesn't like it, so you don't talk about it that much, right? And then he or she tells their
Mm.
managers that
Mm.
you had this idea, and
Yes.
then
Sounds
suddenly you're talking
familiar.
about the same things, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's so many examples out there where you just don't see the obvious because there's these echo chambers, right?
Mm.
Or when we do any kind of market research, confirmation biases, they are all grounded in evolutionary principles. They all make sense.
Yes.
the reasons why we behave like that is because it helped us to to benefit our individual fitness,
Mm,
optimizing the stakes of our own genes in the gene pool of the next generation. They make all sense because every human behavior which you have makes
mm,
some kinds of evolutionary sense. Knowing about it, and by the way, just because it makes evolutionary sense doesn't justify that you do it,
agreed.
right? That's a
Agreed.
very, very
Yes.
important thing,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
um, that um, knowing about it and asking the questions, hold on, guys, are we maybe in
Mm.
a confirmation bias loop? Are we in an echo chamber here?
Mm.
Are we falling for an anchoring bias here? And we
Mm.
explain that in the book. And there are even more biases. Again, if I would write the book, I would put more biases in.
Yeah. It's great, the
Just
section on
knowing about
bias.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
asking the questions, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
of course, before you need to do that, your people need to be educated on it. What is an anchoring bias,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's so important. And often when we do unconscious bias training, and therefore you make the biases conscious, that's the start of the work. So, like you say, acknowledging it, understanding it, and then what, so
Yeah,
we've
yeah,
understood it. Now, how do we use it and how do we counteract these echo chambers in organizations where, particularly for decision making, but
yeah,
also for recruitment and creating the conditions for your team to speak up.
yeah. And I am and also the reason why this book is a pure passion book, and the only reason why I wrote this book and have this podcast is purely because we are empty nesters now, and there is a lot of time on the weekends. Literally, that's what it is.
And you can
It is a
feel that
passion
passion in
project.
the book, Nicholas. You can feel it. It's very
And,
engaging.
yeah, and the you know one of the reasons why it is necessary to have a book like that or books like that
Mm,
and maybe courses like this, and we will launch a course probably in fall winter time
okay.
about this, an online course, is because we are in a we there's so much coaching out there, which when you see the program, I mean, there's decision making coaches who don't even touch the evolutionary reasons of decision making
Wow.
on what biases are we in.
Yes.
We talk
So,
about strategy and all things. People
mm,
need to know
of
about
course,
these things.
that's the foundational knowledge.
That's the foundation of knowledge, right? It's a bit like
Totally.
if you don't have if you don't have a normal driving license, right, you can never really drive I don't know, very well and super fast. You need to practice, and this is what's needed.
Mm,
um yeah, so there's a lot of passion out there, and there's also one thing I want to make very clear, and I'm actually bragging about it in my podcast all the time. I'm talking about my mistakes I made, because when
mm,
I look back, I can tell you there is not one leadership decision I ever took which I would do it in the same way again, because I would have a blueprint how I did it, no matter how good or bad it was, because I did it once, I can
mm,
do it better next time.
mm.
But there were so many other things I did wrong where after from today's perspective, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? How could I have
Mm.
done that? Because I fell in all of these traps,
Yes. Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah. As
That
we
is
all
why,
do.
but we all do, right? But
Yes.
we need to own it,
Yes,
right?
totally. And then do something with it. I agree.
And do something with it, right?
Yeah.
Do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that failure, it's a big buzzword in organizations, particularly since innovation and the startups and fail fast and everything else. But failures are still often masked as successes. So you're talking
Yeah,
about real failures, owning them, and then using them to blueprint something
yeah,
different.
absolutely.
But why do you think leaders are still so seduced by this like surface level metric of, oh, this time when it was really awful, but finally I managed it and we didn't lose any money, for example. I often hear examples like that start as failures and the learning is it was okay. Which I think if you really take on a failure, like you say, it's like, oh my goodness, why did I do that? I would never do that again.
Yeah. So sorry, I didn't understand the question.
But why do you
So
think leaders still want to do that? Cover up their failures, but
oh
but
yeah,
then they're
yeah, people.
saying we need to accept failure and let's talk about failure
Oh
and
yeah.
fail fast
Well,
and all the rest of it.
that. because we are there is a big educational factor in that.
Mm.
Failures are bad. I can tell you, the Austrian school system is built on failure.
Yes.
I still know I don't know how this is I mean, I know pretty much in Europe it is
Oh,
the
yes, it's
same
the
way.
same. Yes.
Right. So I had my whatever, I did my writing in German or in English. No matter what I wrote, if I had 8 mistakes on grammar, I had the worst. It was a 5. In other countries, it's an E or whatever, an
Yeah.
F or whatever. So I had so so the whole system I grew up I think our generation grew up and maybe it is still like that. I don't know. Is built on avoiding failure,
Mm.
right? And no one is really proud to fail and say, here is what I learned.
No.
And this is one of the things which, I mean, look at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a perfect example. Look at my profile in LinkedIn. LinkedIn had like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, LinkedIn rated my profile as one of the top 5%. I have no idea why. It was top
Okay.
5% in quality. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, I am perfect. I mean, I never made a mistake. I always had the highest and best and most wonderful examples. Look at any profile.
Yes.
No one ever in this world of LinkedIn made any
Any
mistake.
mistakes?
We are all
Yeah.
perfect, right?
Uh,
It's the most selective collection of people who are just absolutely perfect. And everyone is a leader. Yeah, I led this, I led this, I led this. No one talks about, you know what, in that role, I effed up that. And therefore, I learned that. And that then made me follow things, right? The funny thing is, I get contacted all the time for jobs on LinkedIn because I'm so perfect,
Perfect.
right? If I would write my failures, which actually made me what I am today, no one would contact me. If I would write I'm a great follower, people would not even think about me because we don't want a follower, we want a leader. But part of the big reason why corporate culture goes down the drain so much is because leaders don't understand that they also need to be good followers
Mm.
and need to give the lead to others who are better in some things, right?
Mm.
So learn how to, you know, embrace your failures, own it, make it better, and and that is one of the things which actually makes you which helps you to reach
Mm.
um, this flow uh, state of organizations when your people understand that you obviously they know that you're not perfect, but that you also know that you
Mm.
show them that you know that you're not perfect. And I'm talking a lot in my leadership
Mm.
positions about what I did wrong, or when I say I don't know that, right?
Mm.
Or that one didn't go well, and I messed that up. Um, and when others speak about failure, and say, okay, let's share this because then others could actually learn from them.
Mm.
We need to be proud of our failures. I mean, Steve Jobs said, and so many people said, right? I mean, Albert Einstein said, so many people said that, right? I mean, if you never fail, you've never tried anything,
Mm.
right? Right? So you have to fail, and but but I mean, when um when you look at the goals, objectives of people in your company, you have to achieve things.
Mm.
You're not paid well or get a great bonus if you fail, right? You have to achieve these things. You have to tick box the goals, right?
Mm.
That means you can never fail. Um, but I think some companies are embracing that
Yes,
meanwhile. I
I've
hear
seen a
that
shift.
more and
Yeah.
more a shift in that,
Mm.
right? That,
Mm.
share failures. And that's also what I'm doing in my podcast, right? I'm talking about the
Mm.
things I did wrong. And that's very good because you as a leader need to start first.
Yes,
You cannot
totally.
ask the others to
No.
tell that, right?
I'll just watch. No, but I mean,
Yeah,
that's why I think your book is so powerful. And once we've understood that, the evolution of our species, how we're wired, the biases that we can encounter that we have, whether
yeah,
we accept it or not, or whether we're conscious or not, then you can
yeah,
start thinking about how powerful it is to step outside the myths that we've created in society and organizations about humans being perfect, which we're not, leaders being perfect, which we're not because they're humans. So I think it's really interesting to have open, humble conversations about how we got where we got to. And the most interesting part, I think, is how what we learned and how we learnt it. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
but I mean, time is running. But if every leader listening takes just one action tomorrow,
yeah,
Nicholas, to deal with the mammoth in their organization,
yeah.
what should it be? Would that be your final call to action for them?
I think my final call to action would be what I wrote this in it was chapter 4 of the book. Um, Look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you leading like you want to be led? You know what?
Yeah, I love that.
That is so um I find this so intriguing and powerful because no one wants to be led by somebody who is reckless, who doesn't care. But look yourself in the mirror. Are you really um working actively to build up the trust? Are you really understanding your people deeply? Are
Mm,
you really making sure every one of your team members has a development plan, even if it gets transactional, a development plan that you know where he or she wants to move? Are you just these things? Look into the mirror,
mm.
and that no one will say, I want to be led by a reckless boss.
No,
Never, ever, right?
ever.
Never,
Correct.
never, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone wants to work in a safe environment. Everyone wants to be recognized for what we do. Everyone wants to collaborate. Everyone wants to have the right chance to move on. So lead like you want to be led. Look into your mirror at night. Are you really doing that? And the book helps to understand that. And actually, while were writing the book, when I finished the book, I actually thought, okay, it might be better even to teach this a little bit, right? So
Mm,
that's why we are developing a course. So it went from a book and then to let's talk about it podcast and then okay, you know what? Actually, it would be good to reach more people. So now we're developing a course on that. I believe personally, I really, really do. If people would understand more about human behavior
yeah.
and what we about this what we all are perfect in
Mm,
performing human behavior. If we understand more, the corporate world would be a better place, 100%.
yeah. I agree. It's the foundational missing piece of the leadership development sort of
Yeah,
approach for the moment. And yeah, so lead how you'd like to be led. Nicholas, thank you for this refreshing and eye-opening conversation. I think if there's one message that stays with me, it's evolution isn't just a scientific theory, it's a leadership
yeah,
imperative. And I'm going
yes,
to,
I like that.
yeah, I'm going to leave our listeners with that as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about where we can find you, where we can find out about the course, where we can find out about the book?
Hmm. Yeah, we have we have a website, Mammoth Leadership Sciences, where you can find the book. The book is called The Mammoth in the Room. Um, and it's everywhere available.
Mm,
The podcast is also called The Mammoth in the Room. Um, um, you can find me on LinkedIn, and if you Google YouTube or the Apple Podcast or Spotify, that's where you'll find us. The book
hmm.
is on Amazon and all channels. And if you follow these channels, you will also be able to see when we finally launch the course,
Okay.
and where you might want to look into this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And very soon we will have in the Mammoth Leadership Sciences webpage, we will have some lead magnets where people can understand what this course would provide.
Okay, super. Well, I'll be putting all those links into the show notes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and
That's
I
great.
will make sure that people can find you easily. I also highly recommend that people read your book, part anthropology, part leadership guide. Brilliant, massively relevant to the future of work and the shift we're in as leaders. So, Nicholas, thank you once again. It was a great conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure.
Fantastic. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye bye.